Hey guys, and welcome to 𝗩𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗀𝗀, your #1 source for all things films and movies. And when it comes to popular film franchises, one that is often looked at is definitely the Harry Potter franchise, which had, of course, the 8 original films, plus the newer films that are a prequel spin-off. But one thing that is definitely really cool is getting to look back at some of the iconic scenes from throughout the series and see some core pieces that maybe were originally way different than what we actually saw, especially when we get to see actors slip up in the form of bloopers or just a look behind the scenes versus what we saw in the final release of the film. It can be really interesting and unique to see these major differences. So I want to take a look at some of the biggest bloopers and changes from what we saw from behind the scenes versus what we saw in the final release of the film. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this. So starting things off, we wanted to take a look at this clip from the 𝗩𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗀, Hallows, where we see Harry, Hermione, and Ron running through the forest. Now, interestingly enough, this actually ended up taking a lot of different takes, especially with how many action angles they had to use. So it's interesting to look behind the scenes and see the sequences of them just having to run over and over again in the same spot, knowing that a lot of these would end up getting cut on the cutting room floor. Then on the flip side, we can compare it to what we actually did see in the movie when it was finally edited and color corrected, and they had all of those big action angles added in together. We can look at this other moment from Harry Potter and the 𝗩𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗀 Hallows Part 1, where we see a bit of a wand fight, which is way more awkward to see behind the scenes versus what we actually do see in the real release of the film.
Stupid boy!
Now we can compare it to what we actually saw, and it looks a lot better than the blooper behind the scenes version.
Drop your wands. So drop him! Take them up, take it, now!
Now we of course know that Harry Potter has always utilized special effects in one way or another to bring a lot of these magic and fantastical moments together in one way or another, and one thing that is definitely really interesting is looking at the broom sequence from 𝗩𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗀 Hallows Part 1, and just the fact that it's these mechanical type mounts is really interesting.
Oh, you better believe it.
Then we can cross that over to what we saw in the final release with all the visual effects, and just how different it looks from this kind of funny and awkward moment is really unique.
Hold tight, Harry. 1, 2.
In actually one of the more heartfelt blooper reels that are out there, we actually can figure out what the very last scene from the entire Harry Potter franchise actually was. As we can see from this sequence where we have Hermione, Ron, and Harry jumping onto some sort of platform, you can hear them talk a little bit about this being the final day of shooting and this being the actual final shots filmed before the film wrapped.
Is this the last shot?
This is the last shot. It's a weird shot to end the film on, I know. So it's just a final big leap. Yeah.
Oh my God.
One last leap. One last leap.
This is such an ironic way to...
I know, it's a very strange last shot.
So there's a little bit of this very heartfeltness around this final sequence, even though at first glance you might not be able to recognize what scene it's really from. The scene actually comes from when they are breaking out of the ministry, in this case an escape into the forest, as we can see in the final cut of the film. Interesting to see that this part of the movie was filmed out of sequence way later on. We can see an older scene from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, where Daniel Radcliffe is struggling a little bit when he's underneath the blankets when they're kind of coaching him through what he's supposed to be doing for that scene.
I think that you already read instructions. It's more about
Perfecting it now.
no. The word is expectations. When you have expectations, things doesn't work. You know, when you act,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Sorry, let me. Oh man.
I wouldn't touch that.
I know it is now. It's very wet.
However, in the final cut that did make it into the film, they do have the sequence, but it's way shorter than what you would expect with how much time went into just filming the right version of this scene.
Lumos Maxima. Lumos Maxima.
Also, when it comes to interesting scenes from older movies, there was actually a cut scene that would have had a troll ballet, and there was no alternative that actually made it into the film. But it is really interesting to know that there was this sequence that had props built for it that never quite could make it into the movie.
When you look at the design of a troll, it's insane. You know, I mean, complete lummoxing things. It was completely hysterical. The whole department were just falling about. In the end, it didn't happen, because just any scene you put it in, it just destroyed the floor.
Actually, in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, there is this funny blooper that the cast messed up on, where they're supposed to lift Harry up onto a wall, and it's just kind of this funny and awkward interaction.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Of course it is.
Now that scene never actually made it into the movie in its entirety. It got cut, obviously, in the editing room, though you can see parts of it and some of the shots right before they climb up onto the wall that did make it into the final cut of the movie. We also can take a look at this scene where there is the snake attack in 𝗩𝗿𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗄, where Emma Watson continuously messes up her line and struggles to remember what she's actually supposed to say. And of course, since this is a CGI heavy scene, it's just a little bit funnier because they're reacting in a way or acting around nothing while they're filming it.
Straight!
Out there. Red card. That was the best one yet. Out there. That was terrific. Oh.
Sorry, what am I doing? The snake's...
The snake's coming in it.
The actual version that did make it in the movie is a lot more intense and suspenseful than the behind the scenes with the little slip-ups in the lines.
Harry!
There's also this interesting moment where they're informing Emma Watson that the Ron and Hermione kiss would be coming up during that week of filming, and Daniel says that he wants to be there, which is just this really funny and awkward interaction.
There's a scene that we're shooting later this week that we should talk about once you've read it. So have a look at it, because we're doing the kiss this week between Ron and Hermione.
What?
Doing the kiss between Ron and Hermione in
This
the
week?
in the Chamber of Secrets.
You are not allowed to be in.
Everyone was there for my kiss.
Of course, it was a pivotal scene in 𝗩𝗿𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗄's Part 2, where we see Ron and Hermione kiss. And we do know that from Daniel saying that everyone else got to be there for his kiss scene, he likely was mentioning his scene from the Half-Blood Prince. Going all the way back to the very beginning of Harry Potter, we can see this funny moment in between shooting the scenes where they're filming the boats going to Hogwarts. Compared that to the magical and ethereal scene that did make it into the final film. And possibly one of our personal favorites is how they had to coach Daniel Radcliffe on how he should be waving for that last shot from the first film when Harry is waving out of the train. And he was going a little too aggressive at first, and they had to kind of coach him through how he should be waving in this scene.
Yeah, let's go. Give him another wave, Robbie! All right, now wave Dan. Wait.
But after looking at that behind the scenes, when you look at how the final version of the film is, you can see it be a little bit different. Okay, so we wanted to turn it around to you guys. What are your thoughts on the Harry Potter franchise? Are you a fan of this series, and do you think getting to look behind the scenes and seeing some of these interesting moments play out a little bit differently from the final release is something that you appreciate with the movies like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on for more videos like this uploaded every single day of the week. Otherwise, that is it for today. We'll see you guys all next time with a brand new video.